Hi guys, we are SheBleeds2 and we're here for our last episode of Hemophilia Awareness Month. And today's episode is PBS, periods, birth control, and sex.
And I've been waiting all month for that.
So we do have one more special episode coming up, but you guys are going to have to wait to see what that's all about. April. So, Krista, how was your period when it started?
Oh my God. Oh wow, how much time do we have? I think I was a late bloomer. I started kind of late, and I started when I started going to camp. And that's, I didn't know anybody that was experiencing it the way that I was at the time that I was going through it. So, probably I think it was like 13. And somebody told me that they used puppy pads, and I wish I had that kind of knowledge now then, because it was like a murder scene sometimes at 13, 14, 15, and waking up to that, wow. And nobody else that's not their normal. That was my normal, so I couldn't talk to anybody about that. And the only person that understood why I could be bleeding so much was my dad.
Yeah, like my mom semi understood it because she had heavy periods too, but she didn't know that it was because she had hemophilia or carried hemophilia or whatnot. And like I just remember, like I think I was like about 12 or 13. I was about in that age. But like once my period started, like my school attendance went to, like there was just so much bleeding and like so much pain. It was like, how am I going to go to school? Like I would walk around.
Why do I want to stay there?
Yeah, like I always, it could have been the middle of the summer, but I always had a sweatshirt to tie around my waist. Just in case. Just in case.
Well, I had a bunch of clothes that were always stained, and it felt like I was never, it felt like, out damn spot.
Yeah, right?
Out damn spot. That's what and that's something, I mean, even though I missed a lot of school, I'm glad that I learned something.
Yeah. Right? So, like, I remember, like, the first thing I did for my, like, periods was, you should start taking birth control. And for me,
Where did that come from? Where did that suggestion come from?
HTC.
And so, and how old were you when that happened?
13.
Did you do it?
Mom had me wait until I was like 14, and I did it, but yeah, it made me sick. Like birth control makes me throw up.
So your little 14-year-old body was given this pill that's formulated for things that happen to a woman's system. Right?
Oh yeah.
I didn't experience that. My dad didn't. My dad. That wasn't when they suggested that. That wasn't. It wasn't. He knew it wasn't going to fix why it was happening, and he didn't want to put me through the effects of birth control at 13, 14, at that age.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if they talk about it, but if they did, and that's why he knew about it, he was really against what that was going to do to everything at my body at 14.
Well, like, I remember being like I didn't want my friends to know that I was taking it. Because I thought that they would think that I was, like, having sex.
Because kids in school at any age are...
Yeah, and I'm like, no, that's not why. Like, I just didn't want people knowing.
But it might make you feel a little self-conscious about why, How can you share that with that, 9th grade?
Yeah.
Like
it was
besides the girl with the bleeding disorder, what kind of girls?
Yeah.
I don't want to say what kind. There's the girls that use birth control don't want to get pregnant because they're having sex, and they're giving it to girls for bleeding disorders, and so I mean.
Yeah, people like automatically assume.
Right.
Like, so you're on birth control, so it must be because you're sexually active.
Right.
you know.
And
but-
and how do you even know how to defend that at 14 years
Yeah,
old?
you
You don't
don't.
even have that kind of experience.
You don't.
But you start to look like you do.
Yeah, because the hormones in your body make you develop faster than you
And-
normally would.
And are you ready for that mentally?
Probably not.
Right, so okay, so when I started using birth control, I was 25 years old, and it did help my bleeding, and that was great. That was great for a few years, the kind that I took, but the first time I had taken birth control, I had already had 2 kids, and I was 25 years old, and I didn't want to get pregnant.
Right? You're
And-
like, how's
but
my
when I
reason?
realized how it did help my bleeding, oh my God, but I know that I still had pain.
Oh yeah.
I knew it wasn't taking care of the bleeding disorder part. I knew it was taking care of that symptom of having that bleeding disorder,
Yeah.
because that's what I was called, was a symptomatic carrier. So
Yeah.
then,
And I mean, like, it wasn't just birth control that they tried me on, you know, there were like multiple things. And most of them ended up not working until, you know, I had a period that lasted forever, and I went into hematology and they were like, all right, well, you have 2 options. We can give you Depo to try to stop it. And I was like 17 and wasn't really down for that idea. Or we can give you Factor. And that is when I was put on Factor
at 17.
at 17.
Oh wow. So for the whole 13 to 17, you have those periods that were not treated.
No, not at all. Well,
So
they
you're
were
having to
treated
bleed
with
every
stuff
month.
that didn't really
You're having
do
to bleed
anything.
every month, going untreated.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it lasts about 2 weeks. Mine lasted-
With
mine
Val
lasted 2
Factor, it's like 16 to 20 days.
Yeah. And heavy,
Oh, the whole time.
right? I'm
Like,
not smiling because
I-
I good time.
Remember telling somebody, like, really, I really don't think it's like normal to go through like 2 or 3 boxes of tampons for one period. Like, I'm pretty sure that you shouldn't have to buy that much in 1 month.
And so being symptomatic and having to bleed every month, I still couldn't get treatment.
Yeah.
I was just...
Oh, it's just your
Sim-
period. Are you kidding me? It's just a period.
Just your period.
It's just your period.
Oh man, getting that a lot, like, it can't be your period still. Which affected, like, into adulthood, like, my relationships and intimacy, and how to even talk about that.
Yeah.
How to even have that conversation
Yeah. Like,
at 16 years old, because I'm not knocking anybody that experiments at an early age in high school. I didn't, because of my bleeding disorder, and I bled for 2 weeks. But the ones that do, and do they get the education? Do they get the education for that? Getting excited
yeah.
because it's Bleeding Awareness Month, and I'm like, where's the education for that? And they just put you on the birth control, and you get overdeveloped, and maybe you become sexually active. But do you know how to talk about those kind of things?
Yeah. Do you know how to talk to your partner about like the certain things you can and can't do because you have a bleeding disorder?
Not just disclosing that, because that's important too, like when and how to disclose it to somebody if you're having sex with someone that's not a serious boyfriend, or your serious boyfriend that you're planning on not having sex until marriage, whatever. That's different too. But once you start having the sex and the sex, sorry,
That's alright. You're good.
okay. How do you talk about what's gonna happen after?
Yeah.
And
Like-
what might happen after with like a period.
I always knew, like, you know, like growing up, health and all that stuff. Like, I always knew, oh yeah, after the first time you have sex, you might bleed a little bit. A little bit.
Right?
A little bit.
And every time,
No, that wasn't a
like I
little
thought it
bit.
was only after you lost your virginity.
Yeah.
Right? And not having anybody. I didn't have you when I was.
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody talking, like, I didn't have conversations with my adult friends because it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening to any of them except
Yeah.
the girls that I had met at camp, which
Yay.
Yay for that, because of that, and when we became adults and we started talking about that and telling each other, well, that happens to me too, or what about this, and
Yeah.
lube.
Yeah.
Lube even at 16. Because,
Yeah.
and who's telling you that? Because you're embarrassed to talk to your mom, you don't want her to know you're having sex, you're embarrassed to tell your doctors because you're afraid your doctor might tell your parents and you don't want them to think anything different, be disappointed, whatever. Who do you come to? Who do you go to? Do you have programs at the chapter? Are they doing anything at the HTCs? Are you going to events and meeting camp? Where is it, and is it happening?
Yeah, the education needs to be out there for the girls and women in the community to like know the things that, need to be done to have sex carefully, or need to be done to go to a gynecologist, or need to be done to understand your periods and know what you're gonna be going through. No one warned me about the kind of periods I was gonna have.
Until
no
I
one
got to camp.
said anything about that. Exactly, until we got to camp.
And it already happened.
Exactly, right? I'm like, I kind of started before I went to camp, so,
Yeah.
Alright, so you didn't start taking birth control till after you had kids, yeah?
Until after I came.
Okay.
Duh.
And then, I started obviously way earlier than that. But did it make you sick? Did it make you feel bad? What kind of effects? How did it affect you?
Oh, seriously, I'm about having something foreign in my body. It kind of freaked me out. I think my body kind of fought it, but I think it changes everything.
Wait, what kind of birth control were you on?
The 5-year one.
You had a Mirena, IUD, a whatever.
Right.
Okay, I've never had one of those. All of my birth control has only ever been pills.
And if you know yourself,
or
you should know how you smell. You should know how you smell. Don't be embarrassed about that. You should know that kind of stuff about your body. And that kind of device, because there's wire involved, it kind of changed my stuff.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell me about that, which, thanks a lot. But, okay, so when you got birth control, you got it from where?
Well, let's see. The HTC told me I needed it, but
so wait, you got a prescription for it at the HTC?
No, that's wrong. They said I needed it, but they told me to go to Planned Parenthood.
Okay, so when we talk about things that we wish would change, and imagine if there was a gynecologist on the team with the social worker, with the nurse and the doctor, and for the women with not just hemophilia but bleeding disorder, because they send them somewhere else, and that would be and it's hard. It's hard to talk about hemophilia and convince new doctors all the time about what you're going through. And okay, they can look at the paper, but if that's a part of the team, God, I wish I had a team like that.
It's every gynecologist I've ever gone to is oh, your iron's low. Oh, your hemoglobin's low. And I'm I wonder why.
And I know
but they don't understand the hemophilia side of it. That's not what they're educated on. They're educated to look for, endometriosis or ovarian cysts or something else that's going to cause massive bleeding.
To look for hemophilia in women.
Yeah.
Period. Ooh.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
I didn't have that moment.
Yeah. So, yeah, the gynecologist never understood the hemophilia side of it.
Right.
And it really gets annoying to have to
what's gonna happen
it every time.
So, and then being pregnant and going to an OB/GYN, my doctor,
gynecologist,
for my delivery, and letting them know that I'm a symptomatic carrier and I have symptoms, and to be dismissed because that being dismissed for treatment of any kind, because I'm not a male, but they're gonna just worry about the sex of my baby because of my carrier status.
Yeah.
And when they test you, the hormones when you're pregnant your factor VIII levels go up, and as soon as you start bleeding from delivery, those levels drop, and they send you home with a bleed and without treatment. But they want you, to get tested. My son left the hospital knowing his diagnosis, my hemo child.
Yeah.
But my aftercare, there was no concern about how long I bled after, or what kind of treatment
Yeah.
how to take care of myself after. And that even though the numbers said one thing during pregnancy, as soon as you weren't pregnant anymore, that changes.
Yeah.
They're back to being where low, and then they're lower because you're bleeding. You just gave birth to a skeleton, right?
Yeah.
In a new, system and stuff. So that's concerning too, because if I was seen at an HCC with a gynecologist on the team, other women with bleeding disorders wouldn't, would have that a part of.
Yeah, and like we've had so many of our friends be like, oh my god, like having a kid, like no one told me, like no one said afterwards, like,
And no one shouldn't tell you not to have a child.
Yeah,
no one, that shouldn't be anybody else's decision but yours. At whatever age that happens at, okay, fine. We want to say please wait as long as you can, but if it happens, okay, it's happening, so, let's deal with that. And there's not any kind of conversation about that. And, that goes back to the sex. The sex, and where are they getting that kind of sex education? And okay, fine, put the responsibility on the parents, but if the parents don't know, like my mom didn't know what it was like to have a bleeding disorder, so she didn't tell me that after, during sex, I'm gonna tear every single time, and it's gonna bleed, and it's gonna look like a period.
Yeah.
Every single time. And nobody warned me that there's gonna be blood involved during sex. And that and no one said that. And it's normal for a girl with a bleeding disorder.
Yeah.
And no one said that either. Conversations I've had with other women with bleeding disorders, say the same thing, and that's where I get the kind of education. But it didn't happen until I came back to the community when I was in my 30s.
Adulthood, and you went like the first God knows how many years of your life, and you're like.
But a lot of women also go through that, and maybe they're too shy, and the girls don't want to tell their doctors, and they don't want to tell their moms that they like it certain different, or rough, or whatever, and no one told me that you would be my best friend.
Right.
Yeah. No one said that. Now that I know, it's you can't go anywhere without it.
Yeah. Well, like back to the period thing for a second. Like one of the things that I know that goes on a lot in this community, and I feel so bad for these women, is, oh, your period's heavy, so let's just do a hysterectomy.
Oh my God, yes! That's why I say it's nobody's choice. Whether you become a mother, don't let anybody make that your only choice to deal with the bleeding, because it's not going to change the fact that you
still have hemophilia.
Yeah.
And that you're still going to have.
You're still a carrier.
And certain issues, like just because they stop your periods doesn't mean you may not have, a joint bleed or a mouth bleed or
an eye bleed.
An eye bleed, like it.
A spontaneous.
It happens, and just taking out your uterus so you don't have a period
is going to
every
prevent
month.
you from having a child.
Exactly.
And a period.
Yeah, and that's about it. It's not going to take care of the bleeding disorder itself.
Itself, yeah. And that's, that is, women are made to feel like that's their only option. Yeah. And if that's what you want to do, no judgment, absolutely not. But it's not going to fix the fact that you still have an undiagnosed bleeding disorder, and that's concerning too, because they don't have those conversations they didn't have those conversations with me when I took my son to the HTC for his care.
Yeah. So, like, with the sex stuff, like, I never knew half of the stuff that, like, I asked you questions about until, like, we got back together, and I was like, oh my God, there's finally somebody I can talk to about this. We need,
Right.
we need to talk.
Right.
Like, I need to talk to somebody.
Because we met at camp and we had this bond and friendship from when we were little, and so having those conversations as adults, thank God, but it did happen kind of late because, like I said, you can't prevent, you can't say no, don't have it, and some girls will end up doing it anyway, and the ones that are they need a safe place to talk about it, and they're not getting it. It's not there because, and it's concerning because I'm a mom, and so I know how to take care of a hemophiliac, and they're not. And they don't want to talk about being a mom. They want to talk about being 22 years old with a very active sexual time or whatever. That's what they want to talk about, and that they should have a safe place for that without being stigmatized or made to feel that it's encouraging them to have sex, because not at all, but they're curious. Your kid is curious. Your daughter is curious about sex, and the nitty gritty stuff, not the rated R on HBO stuff. They want to know. They want to know how to prevent bleeding from holes in their body during intercourse that they're curious about, and they shouldn't. Where are they going to get that from? And not a porno.
No, and I mean, like, we were very very well educated at camp about periods. Like, we learned a lot about periods, but there wasn't a lot of the education that goes along with this is what you should do when you're having sex.
No, but it shouldn't happen at camp. I don't want to say that should happen there, because
no, but I think that camp is what brought us together to be able to
have those
talk about
conversations later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, other women we know that we met at camp, like, that's how the conversations are happening now. But there needs to be a place
that's where you kind of get a
where the
start.
conversations can happen before you're an adult, so that you know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect the first time I had sex.
Nowadays, the kids have Google.
Right.
I don't think about Googling that, but I have, my conversations have changed now that I know more women all across the bleeding disorder spectrum, and thank God for them and their openness. But clearly we're having these conversations because we know each other from being involved, and how many people are missing out on that because they don't go to events and they don't.
Yeah, or they haven't, they didn't go to camp as a kid, so they don't have the connections, like
and
you and I
maybe
do.
all they do is go to the HTCs, and maybe now it's just the forums on Facebook, and okay, fine, you have an alternative lifestyle. That mean that there should be a place for them to talk about that safely, because anybody, when it comes to sex and bleeding disorders, I mean, when I first heard that my son can get a bleed in his penis, I freaked out, because they can get that from masturbating. And is he gonna tell me is he gonna tell me that that's happening? Or is he gonna let it go because he doesn't want to say I'm doing it too much? Yeah. I freaked out, and oh my God, that can happen, that's real, and groin bleeds, and what am I gonna do?
Well, and I mean, think of it, if a guy can get a groin bleed, a girl can get a groin bleed just as easy from having sex.
And there I go, talking about the guys again. Sorry. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Sorry. But that goes into the whole sex thing, I don't know, I walk out of the room at the HTC for a moment, but he sees this person once a year, and then they ask them if they have any questions that they don't want to ask them without me around, but these people are practically strangers, and they want to ask an intimate question about things that go on, you know, when no one's looking. And
So, I know that you said there I go, talked about the guys again, but you know what, listen, like, seriously, how many of them have, like, had the opportunity to have a talk with somebody about, maybe if I do it a little too hard, I might, you know, get a bleed down there. Do they talk about it, you know?
I think so.
Like,
I'm pretty sure they, I hope so.
Like, I feel like they may have the same struggles with some of that as we do.
But
You know?
I brought it home because I had a conversation at an event for women. That's where I heard that. I didn't hear that at the HCC. I didn't hear that at another event about Hemo 101. I heard that from another mom's mouth at a female factor event, and I had to bring it home. But that it scared me because I felt like, oh my God, is this conversation too late?
Yeah.
Because, you know, and that are they talking about those things with people that they're with, or you know, that's that I don't. Before I get ahead of myself and start talking about my man, Hemo, I keep it about us. Again, talk about them.
No, that's all right. We do love them.
All the time.
All right, sister. Well, I had so much fun talking to you
So much fun.
about
listening.
our PBS episode, periods, birth control, sex.
I waited all month for it.
I know, I waited all month for it too. So, we just want to say thank you to everybody that joined us and watched this, and
Happy Bleeding Disorder Awareness
Happy
Month.
Bleeding Disorder Awareness Month. And we love y'all, and keep an eye out for what's coming next.
Glansmans. Hi, Glansmans. Bye, Glansmans.
Bye.
Bye, bye. We do. Play this. Love you guys. Love you guys.